Today I'm in Albany, New York to take a tour, a guided tour of this magnificent building that we all know as the New York State Capitol.
Those two fireplaces are 6 feet wide, 6 feet tall, and 6 feet deep, which means, pre-pandemic, you can fit about 3 people in there comfortably without a private conversation. They are called the whispering fireplaces. Now this is a mural that's completed by the man named William Lethbridge Dodge, a native-born Virginian, New York City resident. He will paint this with his daughter, Sarah Dodge, in his New York City studio apartment. They'll paint it on canvas and they'll put it up on ceiling. As you can tell, the room is made to impress. H.H. Richardson will actually design this room. He will design it in his Richardsonian Romanesque. It is named after him. Look at the building. start around the corner because that escalator is a pain to talk about. So, two things to start off with. Three things I'll say. First, my name's Grant. I'm taking on a tour of the building. But the second thing is that this is the functioning, working capital of New York. It's a very fancy building with very fancy and important people walking around it. It does present some sort of problem when you're having a tour and you have to talk very loud. People don't like that. So let's be a little bit conscientious of the noise as we walk through the building. The second and the last thing I'll say, and the last thing is pictures. Feel very free to take as many pictures as you like. You're not going to hurt the stone ceiling by getting it in a bad light. However, if you use a bad light on some of our paintings, you will damage it. So please just don't use it for much. So let's get started on the tour. So I'll set you guys up with a little bit of history of the building. This is actually the third building New York has used as its capital in Albany. The first one's an old Dutch meeting house, very small, basic type of building, 1777. We had to meet here because someone had occupied New York City, and someone else was marching down from Canada. I guess he got distracted by the race courses in Saratoga, so he didn't like me. That being said, once the war's over, they're trying to figure out a good place to plant New York's government's roots. The obvious choice is New York City. But they don't like it. They'll go to Kingston and Poughkeepsie, and they'll finally end up here in Albany. Basically because the city of Albany says, take any spot of land you want. So they take this hill, that would prove to be a mistake. The first building that they start constructing here will be you finished in 1809. That is that building right up there on top of that. It's a very basic building. It's a very small building. In fact, if you look hard enough, you can find the plaque outside where it says the front door is originally studded. It's kind of hidden. But New York is the wealthiest state. It is the fastest growing state. It has all these different types of things going on. When the Civil War hits, we are the state that donates the most soldiers to the Union cause. We donate the most money to the Union cause. We also lose the most in the war. New York's feeling very full and proud of itself, and rightly so. So then we'll begin the construction of a brand new building. They've outgrown that small little dinky one, and so they'll begin the construction of this building in 1867. Now, has anyone been to Ottawa, Canada, and seen that Parliament building they have there? You have. Did the building look familiar to you on the outside? Because it's the same architect. Thomas Fuller will design this building, and he will also design the Ottawa Parliament building. He will have won a competition, and he will promise New York it will take 4 years and $4 million to construct the building that's right next to his portrait up there. 8 years later, $12 million later. Yeah, he didn't quite get it. He got about this far. Remember I said it was a mistake to put it on the hill? He had a lot of ground issues. So, he'll be fine. And instead, New York will hire these two guys. H.H. Henry Hobson Richardson and Leopold Lewis. Now, there is a third architect who is not pictured on our board here. It's a little bit outdated. I'm sure everyone's seen Central Park in New York City. The same guy will design the grounds here. Richard Law Olmsted will design the Grand Central. We will design the grounds here. These guys will design this. However, they too will take too long. They too will spend too much money. And so they get fired. And a fourth architect is brought on, Isaac Perry. He is a state architect. That means that he's here to finish the building. And in 1899, Teddy Roosevelt himself declares the building completed. Now, to do the math for you, that's a 32-year building project. It takes almost 40 years for this building to be made. And it also will cost $24 million. Now, that doesn't sound like a lot. But when you compare it to today's currency, exchange values, that's around $800 million. This is a nearly $1 billion construction project. That is double the cost of the United States capital. A little expensive, though. Pretty cool, right? Now we're going to step over here into the well of the Senate staircase. I want to talk a little bit more modern. But this staircase is one that's designed by Leopold Lewis. And his architectural style is Moorish Gothic. Now, it doesn't mean anything to you if you've never heard that terminology before, but when you look up, where does it feel like you are? In a church, in a cathedral. That's Gothic. It's that high European type of feeling. The Moors are actually a people from northern Africa, and they also conquered Spain for 300 years in the early ADs. I think it was like 800 they invaded Spain. And that's where you can kind of see the architectural style. That's where you can see some of the finer detailing that's done here. You can also ignore the Notre Dame rosary up there in the corner. That kind of gives away the game. But in the 1950s, we have an excessive need for office space. In fact, we've rented out most of downtown Albany for the legislators, for the judicials, for the executive. All of them need offices. This building does not have enough. So what they will do is they will install a 5th floor over the staircase. That beautiful skylight that you see was gone by the 1940s for reasons I'll get into later. So they had a flat roof, and so they just added in another layer onto our 5th floor. I'll point out the damage when we get up there. In the 1960s, Governor Nelson Rockefeller will construct the Empire State Plaza, which you guys had to come through to get into the building. With that, the Legislative Office Building. They kind of did away with the need for renting out half downtown. And so when this area was vacated, and in the early 2000s, we decided, you know what, let's make this building look original. And so we'll begin one of the most extensive reconstruction projects this building has ever seen. We will remove that 5th floor. There's only one problem though. This always had a skylight. As you can tell, even on a cloudy day like this, it lights up the staircase. The problem is we didn't know what the original skylight looked like. There are no photos, there are no paintings, there's no notes, there's no etchings, there is nothing. So we did our best guess. We took some work he did in this city at about the same time. They had a skylight, that's about what they had. So we tried to emulate what they had. And that's our best guess. Now, you guys have questions. I know there's a lot of information in a very small amount of time. Great. So, you guys got 2 options. If anyone's feeling brave and adventurous, you can walk up the 6 flights of stairs all the way up to the 4th floor. You'll be walking until there's no more stairs left to take. Other than that, we're going to take the elevator. That's my that is going to be around 20, I think it's like 23 pieces per circle. And it goes all the way down. But when we are a restoration effort of it, we figure out that some of them are broken, some of them are damaged, or otherwise need to be replaced. So, first step, where are they from? Well, it turns out they're from a place called Minton Company, all the way over in England. So we contact England, who has the patent rights, who has the selling rights, who has all of this sort of material. It turns out Minton Company still very much is in business. So we ordered more from the same source 50 years later. All right, you folks want to see the center? Come on in. The only thing I'm going to ask is that you don't sit in the very front row. We're doing a little bit of construction work there, but that's all. Those are originally gas lights, so those are always there. Let me raise them off. Those are on chains. So like I said, please just don't sit in the front row. If you fall into the center, you'll have to ask one of the people down there to help you up. I don't want to keep for it. So, welcome to the New York Center. This is our upper house of government here in New York, although that's not technically the most accurate term as we designate it, but it is technically true. Now, as you can tell, the room is made to impress. H.H. Richardson will actually design this room. He will design it in his Richardsonian Romanesque. It is named after him. I think it'd have been named. That being said, it's very warm, it's very rounded. On a perfect day, when the sun is able to come through those windows, the room literally glows. He did his job. It is one of the most impressive sights you can see. In fact, the Smithsonian has called this one of the most beautiful legislative halls in America. That's partially because of the materials that the room is made out of. There's only two things from the United States that the room is comprised of. The first, these big guys, big pillars of polished granite. They are load bearing. They're actually holding up that ceiling from the Adirondacks. Behind you guys is pink Tennessee marble. It is actually not marble, but it is actually from Tennessee. Again, that's kind of where the Tennessee stuff is. So it's a nice kind of ambly, funny-looking type of stone in the archway itself. That's marble all the way from Siena, Italy. Same stuff the Vatican is made. On the sides, framed in more of that Siena marble, that kind of tiling, Mexican onyx. Actually not Mexican, and it is an onyx, but you know. The ceiling, hand-carved oak coffered ceiling. Coffering refers to those divots in it, because they allow my voice to be carried exceptionally well in this room, which is a bit of a story in a bit. And I guess it's hard to avoid the wallpaper. Yeah, that's not wallpaper. Sorry. 24 karat gold leaf. Not original to the room, however. Originally, what would have been here is a tool leather, which is leather with a gold type of gilding in it. In the 70s, it was deemed a little bit too costly to maintain and to keep up, so they removed it and put up the gold leaf instead, believing it still kept with what Richardson would have wanted and the aesthetic that he was going for. All the chairs down there and the desks that you see are made out of Caribbean mahogany, and all of the leather is a red Spanish leather. Now, unfortunately, none of the chairs are original to this room, because a senator can purchase the chair when they're done. Their names are actually plated on the back. That's a little retirement deal. That does imply that some of those desks are original. We currently have 63 senators here in New York, and of those 63 desks that are down there, 32 are original to the room's opening in 1881. That does include a desk that FDR himself sat at. I believe he actually did etch his name in the bottom of it, but I don't actually know which desk it is from up here. But while I have you looking down at the floor, let me point out some of the stuff. Does everyone see that nice big kind of throne over there on the right side of the room? That is where the president of our Senate sits. Anyone know who the president of the Senate here is in New York? Name or title? Don't say president, it's too easy. It's our lieutenant governor, currently Brian Benjamin. Flanking him will be two chairs. Those will be a clerk of the Senate, someone who's responsible for most of the administrative work, the head administrator essentially, and a cleric. By New York State Constitution, a figure of a religious head, sorry, I haven't had my coffee this morning. A religious head has to open the Senate session. It does not, even back in 1777, denote what type of religious figure has to do it. It could be a Catholic, it could be a Protestant, it could be Jewish. New York has always had a large amount of people. It has always had a lot of beliefs and all these different types of cultures. So they do their best to make sure that everyone is equally represented in this room. I don't know precisely how they choose. There's not like an official election process for it, but I know that they do their best. In front of him on that horseshoe desk, those are going to be the rest of the administrative staff. The chairs in front of that desk, the ones that look like school desks, are not for unfortunate school children that have to sit through an entire session of the Senate, thankfully. Those are for members of the press. And the little table even in the middle is an old stenography table, but we don't use stenography anymore. We have live streams, so that's basically our AV table to make sure the streams are kept up. And as I mentioned, 63 desks, 63 senators. Now we'll talk about that ceiling. You guys are going to have to look up a lot on this tour. I apologize in advance. But that ceiling makes it so it's acoustically perfect in this room. I can stand on the other gallery over here, and I will whisper. I'm used to yelling. I'm a tour guide, but I'll talk quiet. Can you guys still hear me? Is it folks standing right next to you? Cool. Now that being said, notice on the desk, they have a microphone that they don't use, and a tablet. Tablet's new. Tablet's last year. They basically had to make a constitutional amendment to allow that to sit on the desks, replacing, the small forest of trees they had to use every year for all the paper that they needed. Now it's all electronic. With that being said, they vote by hand and by voice here. They're very traditional that way. But it does present a second problem. Senators do need to have private conversations. Let's say I want to order my lunch and it's something gross like a bucket of fish with gravy. I don't want people to know I'm eating that. So how can I, as a senator, order my lunch in this room without everybody hearing me? Any ideas? Yes. The fireplace. Those two fireplaces are among the few hundred that this building has. None of them work. One was used. That was a mistake. Those two fireplaces are 6 feet wide, 6 feet tall, and 6 feet deep. Which means, pre-pandemic, you can fit about 3 people in there comfortably without a private conversation. They are called the whispering fireplaces. Now, I have heard that the noise can actually come up to the gallery, which doesn't reach out to the floor. So they're not totally private. The senators are aware of that. but nonetheless, that if you ever come in and watch government happen or see it on the live stream, you might see someone sneak into a fireplace. Now, the last thing that's worth talking about in this room is actually a technicality. Remember at the base of the Senate staircase, I said the building is declared completed in 1899? This really inspired confidence that it was finished, right? It's because of this room. I want to direct your attention over here. Does everyone see these dentils, these floral carvings underneath the windows, right above my room? Check out the other side. Across the way in the arches, you see that nice pattern that seems to follow the curvature of the arch that just sort of fades. This room is never finished. 1879, though, the assembly chamber finishes and is opened up for business. The senators want to use their beautiful new room too. They are currently working out of a conference room. Not a lot of room for a lot of people. And so they will basically politely ask the stone carvers to leave in 1881. They do so willingly, but they never return. So this room remains unfinished to this day. And once you start to see one thing that's left undone, you start to kind of notice everything. Any questions about the Senate? Okay. So, when you guys are ready, we're going to head out. Now, this room is normally locked up behind us, so please get your photos now, because they're not going to let you back.
So we can see the stages with the carved. So if there's carving on the arch, that's which all of the pieces.
I'm just trying to hang back so I don't hold everybody up.
Can you get downstairs, okay?
But I can do it.
Well, this is a portion of the program. We have to go down the $1 million staircase. I'll do it. Did you want to roll? That's actually what you're doing at the other side of the gallery. We're going to take one of the back side, better view. But we'll do that this direction. Now, it's a bit hard to just walk on by this, huh? This is the centerpiece of our building. This is the Great Western Staircase. To New Yorkers, though, it's the $1 million staircase. It cost us $1.5 million to make, so I figured that's what it's worth. Now that I've mentioned it, we're going to walk by it. We'll come back. I'll show you guys this. Go on in. Just behind the red carpet, please. There's not much fun going down. A lot more tour to go, though. You never know what I might say next.
Oh.
So, welcome to the Assembly Chamber. So this is the lower house of the New York government, although again, we don't really use that terminology here in New York, but nonetheless, the assembly is the house of the people. Now, this is designed by Edwards again, so it kind of maintains that sort of Moorish Gothic type of feeling, doesn't it? There's one thing that doesn't, however. I want to see if anyone can see it. It's pretty obvious, don't you? No clue for it. The desks are not Moorish Gothic. Yes, actually, the original desk is in the left-hand corner over there. That's what the original desks look like. But those are just desks. I actually mean architecture. The ceiling. That doesn't really look very churchy, does it? The one above your heads, though, does, right? So, this room has the largest attempted vaulted ceiling in America. Notice how it's not there anymore, and I use the term attempted. That's because that ceiling is the third ceiling this room has had. It's our unfortunate ceiling. So when the room was opened up in 1879, the first ceiling looks like the one that's right above your heads. It is this nice high vaulted ceiling. In fact, the ceiling is about 20 feet higher too. Now, these ceilings are fantastic for one person standing at the head of a building and allowing their voice to be carried down the entire length. When you have 150 people in here, all shouting to get the speaker's attention, doesn't quite work out so well. In fact, you can even tell my voice, even in this small alcove, is bouncing around like crazy. They were not very happy about the acoustics in this room. However, it was kind of decided for them to remove it. It began to crack. The building shifted, it settled. Whatever happened, the balance was off, so it cracked. That crack turned to gravel, falling onto the floor. And in fact, it got so bad, an 8-pound chunk of stone landed on the assembly member's desk in the middle of the night, according to the legends. Now, they didn't feel very safe in the room after a massive stone fell onto the floor. So, they actually ended session early, and they all went home, voting to remove the ceiling and replace it. Now, to solve the acoustic problem, they attempted to do something similar to what the Senate has, that nice coffered ceiling. That is like the ceiling you see above the floor today. Now, as you can even tell, it doesn't totally solve the issues with the room. This room is the largest room in the building, and so it is naturally going to have some acoustic issues, which is why they do not follow the Senate's form of tradition. See those nice big black boxes on the desks of all the assembly members? Those are how they vote. They vote electronically. There are 3 buttons on there: yay, nay, abstain. When you push a button, that's how they vote. But then, how am I supposed to know which way my assembly member voted? Anyone been to a hockey match before? A soccer game? Football game? You look at the scoreboards. Each side of the room, those 4 smaller screens hold all the names of all the representatives, and the big one in the center will show what is actually being voted on. And from there, you'll see a green Y for yay, a red N for no, and an orange A for abstain. And if someone hasn't voted yet, it just is blank. But if you're ever actually lucky to witness the government here, you might be able to sit on the galleries here. Well, you will be able to, is a better way of saying it. However, if you are specifically invited, you do not need to wait in the galleries. You can sit on the floor. That's what all the fold-up chairs are for in the back. If you're specifically invited, usually either like a school group or a special interest group, you can come by, watch your bill pass, or get voted down. I mean, that's kind of democracy for you, but if it's a school group, I'm probably sure it's going to go. Now, unfortunately, there's also no cool fireplaces you can step into to have a private conversation in here, so that's why they put tables in front of them to kind of dissuade people from attempting. But I've only gotten to the second of our 3 ceilings. 1911. There's a tragic fire that basically ravishes this building for 3 days straight. When we get back to the $1 million staircase, I'll talk a little bit more about it. However, they're worried that if the fire catches to this room, the whole building's going to go up in smoke. There'll be no saving it. So the firefighters come in and preemptively douse this entire room with water, hoping that will stave off the worst of the fire damage. What happens when you spray solid oak with water? Any ideas?
Warps.
It warps, yeah. Maybe it'll expand, it will mold, it will rot. Maybe it will fall on the floor in gray, wet clumps. That doesn't sound right, does it? So something must have been wrong. Wasn't wood. Paper mache. It's called oakum. It's paper mache painted to look like oak. Now, that sounds tragic, but double-edged sword. There's now a bunch of wet paper on the floor. Fire can't touch this room. So it's basically spared because of that ceiling. Doesn't mean we're happy with the fact that now we don't have a ceiling. So we put in a new one. It's real oak. I checked. You'll have to take my word on that. That's a lie. And now it is here to stay. Hopefully it is the last. We did learn something from them though. See that nice beautiful carving work in the archways? A nice dark spiral floral pattern? Paper mache. Questions about the assembly? Okay, let's go back to the $1 million staircase. Here we are, $1 million staircase, great western staircase. Has anyone been to the Opera House in Paris? No? Okay. Second question. There is a correct answer to this question. Has everyone seen the movie Titanic? Good. Take a look. Does it seem familiar to you? The Titanic staircase is based off the Paris Opera House staircase. And this is based off the Paris Opera House staircase, and they basically look the same. It is designed by H.H. Richardson, although he'll actually never see it to completion. He's fired before it's complete. So it is actually finished by Isaac Perry. It will take 12 of those 32 years for this staircase to come. Because he has a small obsession with carving. There's a lot of carving on this staircase. He will give his stone carvers, of which we hire between 400 and 500 different stone carvers over the construction of the building, mostly from the United Kingdom, England, Wales, Scotland, Ireland. This is before the split, so it was just Ireland. And he's given them 2 instructions. That's it. You are to carve 77 famous faces here on the staircase. And you are also never to carve the same thing twice. I can guarantee you can walk up and down the staircase until they kick you out. And you will never find the same thing twice. I have done it. It is true. Of those random carvings, there are about 100 faces in here that are not labeled, that are not part of the 77. We have no idea what they are. They could be lovers, they could be wives, girlfriends, someone who paid them to be carved on the staircase. Who knows? They're anybody. So there are capitals unknowns. But what we do know, the 77, the 30 are underneath the skyline. So those 30 are the first 30 governors of New York. And obviously we've had more than 30. So if you actually look to the far right-hand corner, you have to lean out over the staircase to see it from our angle. That will be the state seal as it was when the staircase was completed in the late 19th century. But skylights. I mentioned they were all removed in this building in the 40s. What else happens to America in 1940? World War II. Albany is actually under blackout conditions at this time. That means that they're worried that some bombers are going to fly over and try to drop some explosives on us. This building is our state capitol. It's a little bit of an important building. However, next door is a much more strategic target of an armory that's constructing munitions for the war effort. And so to make it harder to spot this building and then spot the armory next door, they remove all of the skylights to prevent any sort of gleam giving things away. Now, this staircase, fortunately, has never had a floor built in over it, but it was just a flat metal roof with two chandeliers and hanging. Now we're going to go back to 1911 where I talk about that fire. It's all our historic history. It actually starts one floor beneath us in what is now the Legislative Library for New York, but what was at the time the actual library. This building has had some of the earliest electricity for any state building in the country. These pieces that you see here with electric light, those are originals. Well, not the actual fixtures themselves, but they were originally supposed to be there. In fact, we have accounts of people coming specifically to view the electric lights of the New York Capitol. That's why they came. They weren't on a lovely tour of the actual history, they just wanted to see the shiny things. That being said, earliest electricity too. That means early wiring. Some of those early wires got a flaw. Flaw caused a spark. We lost 450,000 books. Not just books, documents, artifacts, things that dated all the way back to our Dutch heritage of the 1600s were lost in that fire. Very tragic. But I like to say we didn't really lose any. And it's not some big deal, they're still in our heart. Because all that soot, that ash, that smoke that comes up, it baked the staircase black. That's what it looked like. When we restored it in 2000, that's how long it took us to restore it. They left us a small patch. That's how dark it was. Now, if you want to see what this whole room looked like, well, you could go online and look at photos, because again, 2000s when it's fixed. We had color photographs by now. But I want to take you guys take a second to picture back to the ancient year of 1996. Staircase is that dark. There's a flat metal roof where the skylight is. The only light that you get is from those windows over there. Now imagine it's nighttime. A little bit scary of a staircase, huh? Yeah, I wouldn't want to walk down. Now, any questions? I have a question for you. Is everybody okay with stairs? Okay. So if you guys want to walk down the stairs, you're going to walk down. You're going to go towards the alcove over there on the right. I'm going to take the elevator down on the other side of us. The only thing I'd like to say is that this is a historic landmark. This is a national landmark, which means you can't actually do anything to it. So it is no handicap accessibility. So if you need to go slow, please go slow. Grab onto the stone if you need to. But not meet you guys down on one floor. doesn't need to be, you know. I've never heard of anyone classify Abraham Lincoln as a New Yorker. So it doesn't really matter. We can also see you have Lincoln, Grant, Roscoe Conkling. He gets his full name on it. Must have been an important guy. I don't know who he is. But that's just it. There were no standards. There were no restrictions. They were told to carve the faces on the names. They were never told how to do it. You might even notice that some of the names are script. They're not just this print letter. You also might think they spell someone's name right. To the left of Abraham Lincoln, the very famous man, Fred Douglass, as they put it. I would never call Frederick Douglass Fred. I also might spell his name right. If you look, the second S is a bit fresher. That is good. I'm very important. They spelled Frederick Douglass's name wrong. He spells it with two S's, they spelled it with one. No, it's not necessarily a slight on Mr. Douglas, of course. They were much more phonetic spellers in the 19th century, and so they may have believed it was spelled that way. Maybe that was just whatever way it was. Of the 77 faces, there are in fact 6 women that are carved in on the staircase. It was a very late addition, but we got to see. In fact, some say Susan B. Anthony herself came by during construction, looked at the staircase and said, a lot of men on here. And they changed it very quickly. She is actually carved in on the staircase, as well as Clara Barton. Interestingly enough, a Captain Molly Pitcher is carved on the staircase, although she's never referred to by Captain basically anywhere else except the staircase, so it's pretty cool. All right, got one more floor to go down. I should head down this way. You're just going to go right down to where you see all the lights on that side of the staircase. I'm trying to think of the best elevator to get there, I think. Because some of them don't go to the second floor.
I can just try.
You sure?
Yeah, I'll be slow, but I can do
Okay.
it. Yeah, thanks.
Because if we take the same elevator we took, that'll take us into the DOJ's office, like in the office almost. These are the original signs of the decoration. And they hold up before the staircase. As you don't get color, that being said, first of all, I'm going to take you through the hallway. Now, what used to be a plain hallway is now decorated with a bunch of paintings. They're not technically New York collection, but they are loaned to us in 2 years old. And they are all paintings of people between Plattsburgh, Buffalo, New York City, and the South, and every single county. You guys live in New York, we're going to walk on. Now, however, we don't really have too much time left on this tour, so we're not going to stop and talk about any of the artwork. We're really just going to walk on through. But I do like to remind everyone, this building is open to 7. I am not kicking you out at the end of the tour. If you stay to 7:30, you might get kicked out by a trooper, but it will not be open. So please feel free to come back and take a look at all the paintings if you so choose. Easy to do. If anyone went to school in class, that much stuff. Very common in the 19th century, less common today. So when we installed a fifth floor in there, it basically blocked everything off from view. But when we removed it, what do we find underneath? It was mostly damaged. Except for that small darkened portion up on the left-hand side, it's not quite as reflective, it looks a little bit duller. That is the original paint that survived. The rest of it is part of the restoration effort. We basically copied what was still there, made stencils out of it, and hand painted it on ourselves. So whenever it needs maintenance, we do it ourselves, by hand, just as they do. Now the next room we're taking guys into is the governor's reception. It does, however, look like Now this is a mural that's completed by the man named William Lethbridge Dodge, native born Virginia, New York City resident. He will paint this with his daughter, Sarah Dodge, in his New York City studio apartment. He'll paint it on canvas and we'll put it up on the ceiling. That is not the original intent of this room, however. Notice how the stone is so much thicker, it's so much denser, it's bigger than these things. Anyone else ever notice that this capital has no general on it? We're one of 10 states that doesn't. Not for lack of trying. Originally, if you go on the basement of the Senate staircase and you see the architectural sketch, we have a 100-foot tower currently where we stand, capped off by a dome. When the ceiling of the assembly started to fall down, they said, maybe we should hold off on the tower. May not be the most structurally stable. So supposedly they said we'll wait for a future generation to decide. Well, if that's true, we decided against it. But then it became a question of what do we do with this room? Well, then the idea becomes, let's turn it into a rotunda, a grand entrance hall. You will come in from the Hudson River. You will walk onto the first floor and you will walk into the flag room, which is still currently today. There is a series of battle flags that were fought with New York militia and National Guard all the way up to World War I from 1812. You will come in, you will be surrounded by the New York regimental flags. You will look up and you will see the spirit of New York mourning her war dead. The name of the figure in the center. She doesn't go by a second name, however. Much simpler. Sarah. That's Sarah Dodge. We used her as the model. Now, obviously, we are standing on a floor, so this was never made into a rotunda. Anyone else know what happens in 1929 when the mural was finished? Any ideas? Something that made everyone very sad. The Great Depression, the stock market crash. New York has a few more things on its mind than knocking off the floor of the Capitol. So the floor remains, we have no rotunda, and you get to see the mural nice up close. FDR himself declares this the governor's reception hall, and that remains to this day. And I got one last place I get to show you. So it's New York State tradition that when a governor completes their service, when they're no longer the governor, they're allowed to donate a painting to us. It is done by their own money, their own dime, by an artist of their own choosing. We have nearly every single governor in this hall, but we are currently missing 4. 3 of which is up in the air. However, our 8th governor, Nathaniel Pitcher, we have no idea what he looked like. He never donated a painting. There are no sketches, there's no photos, there's no paintings, there is nothing to show what he looked like. He is unfortunately not represented in the hall. Let's go on. was when he was governor, what he served, about him, about painting, and we got 12 governors, presidents, and been one of them. And the president was the leader. Now, sometimes we're lucky, we actually have artifacts from when they served. These older ones are going to be facsimile, which is a very fancy word for fake, because the actual like flesh damage to parchment or damage to ink, so basically we're actually bleach the ink out so you can't read anything. So those have been preserved, so these are facsimiles of that. If you go to a more modern government, like we have a bit more contemporary stuff in these. Like there's actually a letter that he sends to Martin Luther King over the case. Which is cool. However, I'm sure there's it's that one. This isn't always open. It might be out. But this is the office of the governor. The official office, I would say. Our actual office is around the corner. It was actually moved over there by Nelson Rockefeller so you could view the construction project of his Empire State Plaza. So the legend goes, but who knows why it moved it. Now you can also tell it is very similar to the Senate. It was also designed by H.H. Richardson. If you were wondering what that tooled leather would have looked like in the Senate, there you go. That's basically what it was. Now, one cool story about this room. Everyone knows FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, was governor of New York before he became president. He was also stricken with polio at a very young age that basically rendered him unable to walk. He got that while he was governor. So how does he get his wheelchair up to the second floor of this building? Now keep in mind, FDR is still young, he feels that being seen in a wheelchair is a sign of weakness. Actually, if you look at old photos of him early in his political career, he will be held up by two burly guys in suits. Those are not Secret Service, those are actually his sons holding him up. That being said, how does it help him in the office? He can't be seen not walking. So how does he get in the room? I'll give you a hint. It's actually in the room, the answer. Not the fireplace. Good guess though. The door. There's a door right there. It's actually a secret elevator. So what will happen is, and this is still how the governor enters today, actually. They will come in through a portico out there. They will come in. There is a random door that is mislabeled. That's a secret elevator. They will come up, come out the door, and they'll be here. When FDR was governor, what they would do is they would really sneak him in. They would basically take the desk that's over there. That's the desk that has been used by every single governor that is here in the building, ever. That was put right where the AV table is. They moved him from his wheelchair to the desk, took the wheelchair away, opened the door. Nobody ever saw him come in a wheelchair. That wheelchair is in our collection, by the way. It's on display in the executive mansion. But we can't get into the executive mansion, so. Okay. Final questions? Because this is the end of our tour.